Book marketing. Book marketing is the toughest thing that authors deal with. I get calls all the time. How do I market my book? How do I make it a bestseller? What do I do? My book has been out for a year or two, and I just don't know what to do, Melanie. Well, let me give you a little bit of advice. So I'm going to tell you what I just told an author recently. Actually, several authors. One even called me from Germany. So just so you know who I am, I'm Melanie Johnson. I'm one of the owners and founders of Elite Online Publishing. We work with traditional publishers like Simon & Schuster, Hachette, Covenant Press. I mean, we've worked with a lot of them, and they just don't know how to make a book bestseller necessarily, unless you have millions and millions of followers and you're a super celebrity and, you know, in movies. So how does a regular author get to be bestseller? And it's not just about bestseller, right? It's how do you market your book a year from now and keep it going? So let me break this down a little bit for you. So first of all, I like to do an analysis if your book is already up and you're struggling and it's just feel like it's not going anywhere, right? So first of all, the book has to look good. I know I've said this a million times. You need to have a really good cover. You need to have a robust book description, book title, and subtitle, and put it in all the right categories. So that's number one to help people find. This is just like the Amazon back end of it. We're going to talk about the after Amazon stuff too. So the Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Ingram stuff is right categories, right cover, all of those things. The other thing is, you know, you want your book to drive business. We're talking nonfiction books here. So on the book side of the publishing side of it, so you want to make sure inside the book that you put a call to action, and that should be in the first few pages. I like to do it either right before or right after the table of contents, all right? Then the next thing, as I said, so make sure you have an author bio on there. You're in the Amazon Central page. So you want to connect your book and put a bio there and put links there. Amazon is really tricky about this. We used to put everybody's website in there, and now they don't allow that. So we kind of are tricky. We don't put like the .com. We just put com with a space. So you can put other places where they can reach you right there. An author I just talked to, the one from Germany, actually had several books out. So a tip if you have more than one book is you should put the other books inside the book that you have. Hey, check out my other books. And don't bury it and put it at the end. Again, it should be in the front of the book. Another thing you should do if you have more than one book is put the other books in your book description. Check out my other books and put the titles of those books there. Another great little tip is to put your book link in all your email signatures. So your book should be everywhere, right? Everywhere you are. Don't forget about it. So if you're just an author and not a bestseller, it still needs to be listed in your LinkedIn profile, on your LinkedIn banner, and your social media, everywhere you want to have your book listed, okay? So that's helpful. Then the next step. How do I get sales? So we run campaigns where we can get 10,000 sales, 15,000 sales. You know, it costs money. You have to have an investment. So let's talk about that a little bit. If you want your book to explode and your business to explode, it's an investment. It's hard to do it on your own if you don't have a following. I don't have time to do things that I don't know how to do, right? I don't want to learn how to do, I don't want to learn how to tile my bathroom. I've got better things to do than learn how to do that, unless that was going to be a new hobby of mine. So hire people that are really experts at that type of thing to get you to do that, right? So think about hiring people that you need to do. So the next step is I want to make sure that you're posting it on social media. Don't forget about it. Even if it's 2 years from now, you should have posts on there and have a call to action to buy your book and leave reviews. All right, now let's get into if you're a business owner. This is really some of the strategies that we teach. So let's talk about bulk purchasing of your book. So now everyone thinks about people buying onesies of their book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and that type of thing. But what about if people bought 100 books or they bought 1,000 books at one time? Wouldn't that be cool? So there are strategies that we teach our authors to do that, and then we build a whole ecosystem to go with it for that particular author. Oh, you hear music. That's my clock. I have a musical clock here. Every time it hits the hour, it gives a song. So just get a little music as a bonus. All right, so what we do is bulk buying. So think about, everyone thinks about their physical book as a bulk purchase, but what about if you could do a bulk purchase of your ebook? So your ebook, you could give so many downloads of your ebook. You could offer so many downloads for a period of time. So I don't want to throw big numbers out or promise you anything, but you could say, I'm going to give you limited downloads, let's say to, I don't know, Microsoft of your book. You could have unlimited downloads for 6 months or 3 months, or you can have 10,000 downloads. So 10,000, think about it, you could charge them even at $1 a book, that's $10,000. So think about how you can utilize not just the physical book, but you can also utilize the digital copies. And people forget about the audiobook. Why should you have an audiobook? Because you can bulk sale the audiobook. You can do the same strategy with an MP3 that you can do that with the audiobook. Now you could just give away a couple chapters if you want, or sell a couple chapters, but I think a great way is to give, again, so many downloads or so many time frames. So think about, you're gonna get 10,000 or even 500, let's say 100, let's start small. Like, I'm only gonna get 100 downloads of my book. So what could you price that at? And then they could give gifts away of that as well. So think about different ways you can manipulate bulk purchase of your book. If you're a speaker, you can include it into your speaking fee. So we had one author that he was traveling all over the country. He was on big name podcast and television shows. And then what he was doing was trading out his travel. He had to travel anyways. He had multiple interviews. So he just traded out travel for the speaking for books. So that way he leveraged and got more books into people's hands. The other thing is, the more people read your book, the more they're going to like it, and the more they're going to want to talk to you, and the more they're going to want to share their book with other people. All right, now another thing I want to talk about is a CTA, a call to action in your book. So what is a call to action? You're going to send them somewhere where they can opt in. Amazon doesn't tell you who read their book. And let's say you did give away that 1,000 copies. Well, you don't know who they went to if someone else gave them away, a company did. But if you have a call to action inside your book, then guess what? Then they can opt in. Opt in means that they give their name and their email, and you give them something wonderful, because it's all about growing your list, right? And getting that perfect client, that ideal client, into your ecosystem to buy whatever it is, whether you're raising money, whether you're selling franchises, whether you're selling courses, whether you're a speaker. You want to get that list to grow, and that helps also grow the value of your business. Because when you have a list that's big, it's got value to it. Think about Amazon. Part of Amazon's value is their data. So when you have data, if I have all these people's names and emails and businesses that they're in, that is worth something to someone who wants to maybe buy your business in the future. So build that list the best you can by having what? A call to action inside your book. All right? So make sure that you do that. That's another way to get customers. Another thing you should be doing, this will be the last thing, I've got like a zillion things I can tell you, but I'm just going to limit it to a few things. The other thing that you really should do is you should repurpose your content. So you've now created a book, right? And it is, 30,000 words, 60,000 words. Think of how many quotes you have in that book. Think of how many blogs you have or articles that you have. So I love blogs and articles because we even turned our Be Recognized book, which, let's see, I've got one over here. You're just gonna have to follow me for a second. Let me grab my book. So here I am right here. So Be Recognized, we took every chapter of this book and turned it into articles. So now each one is an article that we can use as a blog post. I can put it on LinkedIn. I can put it in a newsletter on LinkedIn. I can send a link to the article to as an email to someone to check out. So think about repurposing this content, right? Then there's thousands of quotes in here. Once you've created a book, you have a lot of quotes. Another great tool that we're using to repurpose content is we're turning our books into podcasts. What? You're turning your book into a podcast? What? Yeah, so we're taking the audiobook and taking each chapter and turning it into a podcast and uploading the podcast to Apple and Spotify and everywhere that you have podcasts. So think about that. That's a different audience. Why is that important? I know my brother Mark, he watches some YouTube videos, but he doesn't read books. He doesn't listen to audiobooks. But guess what? He is a podcast listener. So he might discover my book on a podcast. He discovered my book because I sent it to him, of course, right? He's my brother, so he had to get one. But he's going to discover, someone like that is going to discover your book on a podcast. That's why I say you have to put your book in so many different places. People consume content in so many different ways. And if you're not talking to people about it, don't assume that they know, because they don't. You're still a best kept secret unless everybody knows who you are. I mean, there's a guy, Grant Cardone. I don't know if you know who he is, but there's a bunch of people that don't know who he is, and he's super famous in his niche. Thousands of people know who he is, but there's still a lot of people who don't know who he is. So remember, and also grab our book if you want to. Be Recognized. It's an awesome book. So you want to repurpose your content, have your book everywhere, promote it. Don't ever forget about it. Even if it's 1 year old, 5 years old, 10 years old, you can still run a bestseller campaign. You can still do book signings. You can still post about it. You can still turn it into a podcast and an audiobook. So make sure you're doing that. Those are some of my marketing tips. What we're doing now for authors is we are selling, we call it a book boost, where you can sell thousands of books and get book reviews. We get articles written about you if you're interested in doing that. We run a bestseller campaign, and we get book awards for authors, among a lot of things that we do. Of course, we publish books all the time and create the cover and do everything for you. Again, so I'm Melanie Johnson, one of the owners and founders of Elite Online Publishing. So we hope you look us up and connect with us, and keep writing, everyone. We'll see you next time.